Redemption is still possible, Reyes. Climb the mountain.
What's up, everybody? Mark Medina here. Bo Moore, he's there somewhere. You can't see him yet, but he'll be here eventually. Bo got to do something that I really want to do, and a lot of PlayStation fans want to be able to do. You got to play PSVR2. And more importantly, you got to play Horizon Call of the Mountain. So we're going to talk about it really quick. I assume you have like a write-up preview on the website for Horizon, correct?
I do, yeah.
Great. So this will serve kind of as the video. I'm just going to lob you some questions, and I expect you to answer truthfully. You are under oath. The first thing I want to go over is every time I jump into a VR game, I always want to know, is this a VR experience or is this a VR game, right? So it's like you have the Spider-Man thing where it's like you're swinging around, but there's like not much there. But then there's actual full-fledged games. How does Horizon, which category does Horizon Call of the Mountain fit under?
Yeah, this is definitely a full VR game. I was told that it's about 6 to 7 hours of story, fully fleshed story gameplay, way more than just like a tech demo or VR experience.
Speaking of story, so we have Horizon Zero Dawn takes place basically Aloy is born, and then through her being a young adult, and then Forbidden West is about 6 months after Horizon Zero Dawn. Where does Call of the Mountain fit into this?
So this is it's a standalone game with a completely new original story, but it's set during the events of Horizon Zero Dawn. You'll be playing as Ryas, who's this disgraced former soldier, and you'll meet some familiar faces along the way, including Aloy, I'm told.
You're told. You haven't seen her yet. I was wondering if she would show up. Okay. They promised, though.
Yeah.
I want to talk about like the hardware side of PSVR 2. What does the game look like? Like, how good does it look in the headset, and what is the moment-to-moment gameplay like?
Yeah, well, first off, it was absolutely gorgeous. The PSVR 2 has the highest visual fidelity on any mainstream VR headset right now. It's at 2000 by, I think, 2040 resolution in each eye. So that basically adds up to about 4K total resolution, and it really shows in the visual presentation. Just
my eyes can't see 4K. I can guarantee you right now.
It is absolutely gorgeous. The colors are lush. You really see, those robotic dinosaurs really up close. Mm-hmm. You get a massive sense of scale for them. As for the actual gameplay, Horizon, it has kind of two main ways that you're playing. There's the exploration points and then the combat sections. So when you're exploring, you are on these, I don't want to call them linear, but they are relatively linear. Like, it's not an open world game like Horizon
mm-hmm.
itself. Like, you're in kind of, you're on a relatively set path, but there will be multiple paths to kind of get where you're going. So you can kind of think of it like an Uncharted or a Tomb Raider or something like that. And in these sections, you're exploring around. There'll be tons of nooks and crannies to look for secrets. But the big draw of these sections is climbing. So you are doing mm-hmm. a ton of climbing up these sections, just like in, Uncharted and Tomb Raider. You do these climbing, but instead of just holding a button and pressing the thumbstick, you are physically going from grip to grip, pulling yourself up, and it makes these sections so much more fun than just pushing a button. The other half of it is the combat sections, and so mm-hmm. I was a little thrown off when I first went into it. So in the exploration sections, you do have your bow and arrow, and so you'll shoot targets and stuff along the way. I didn't see any puzzles yet, but I'm assuming that there will be, shoot a lever to open a door or something like that. Mm-hmm. But once you actually get into combat, you sort of enter this circular arena where it's basically just you and the enemy. So I fought against a Watcher, one of the little raptor-like little dudes. Mm-hmm. And then I also did a boss fight against a Thunderjaw, which was absolutely massive. And I am proud to say I took him out on my first try, which was, I think everyone was surprised that happened. But basically in these sections, you're in this circular arena. And so you're sort of locked to a track in a ring with the enemy sort of in the middle. And so all you can really do movement wise is move left and right, which is done by you hold down a button and swipe your arm, and that will dodge you to the side, and then you release to not swipe anymore, so you can go back and forth or do it multiple times to traverse around this ring. While the enemy on the inside is, jumping and dancing around and swinging at you with attacks or shooting lasers or missiles, whatever. So you're basically just reading its attack patterns and then dodging as these attacks come in, while of course shooting arrows back at it. So the motion is you hold down the trigger, pull an arrow from behind your head, pull it back, and release the trigger to shoot the arrow. You're just trying to take out whatever enemy. It's really a one-on-one focused experience. I don't know if there will be multiple enemies at once. I only did the one-on-one versus the Watcher and then the boss fight. We'll see. In the Thunderjaw section, there were like pieces of cover all around. So, sometimes I would dodge behind a thing and then it shot a barrage of attacks, and the cover actually crumbled and broke down as it took this assault of missiles and laser beams, and I had to go somewhere else.
What was the scale like being in VR? Because, the original trailer, kind of has you like riding in a boat and you see a tall neck walk by, and it's like, that these creatures are massive, but it's a little bit of a different perspective when you're actually in VR. So fighting these machines, how close did you get to be to them? And are they a lot more massive in VR than you would see on your television?
Yeah, they're definitely, that sense of scale is absolutely there. The boat section that you mentioned, that's I believe just the beginning of the game, and that's the section that I played. I started out in this boat, and you're really just kind of in that locked-in boat trip section for not too long. It's basically just, you can think of it almost as a cutscene where you're talking to these characters, and but I was able to reach my hand down and dip it in the water. Obviously I didn't feel the water, but it reacts to it, and you hear the trickling as the water flutters over your hand. And then the tall neck steps over you, and it's there, it's huge. It's just you're right up in it.
So the beginning of Horizon Call of the Mountain is the same as the beginning of Half-Life 2. Got it. Last, I want to talk about the headset itself, what it feels like playing the game. The whole point of PSVR2 and a lot of VR is like immersion, and so this has haptics like in the headset. It's got the adaptive triggers that people would find in the DualSense for the PS5, and then finally it's got eye tracking. Are you able to touch on any of those? Were they in your experience at all?
They were there. Let's start with the headset haptics. So I noticed them a little bit, probably not quite as much as, it's not something that I feel is an absolute necessity. It was just sort of a nice to have there. It probably, if I had been paying closer attention to it, I think that when the tall neck stepped over my head, there probably was a sort of side to side buzzing motion, but don't quote me on that, because I was mostly just in awe of the massive machine stepping over me that I didn't exactly notice. It's the kind of thing that it just sort of blends in, and so it didn't, particularly stand out to me. But that's kind of a good thing. It wasn't distracting at all. It wasn't like, oh no, like. And then it definitely in the the combat sections, like when you get hit, just like when your controller rumbles, the headset will rumble some. And to that same point, I'm not sure if it was giving me directional input. It wasn't, not enough that I noticed at least, but it could have been kind of hitting like, same as if you're getting incoming damage, on your front right, it buzzes on the front right. I don't know if it did that. It might have. I didn't quite notice it, but that could be something. But basically, as with all of these sort of technical abilities, it'll just fall to the developers to see how much effort they want to put into them. To your second question, the controllers and the triggers, yes, again, the PSVR2 has the same adaptive triggers and haptics in their two controllers.
Right.
I didn't really notice the triggers too much, but the only weapon that I was using in my demo section was that bow and arrow. But I was told that other weapons that you might encounter later in the game, one of which could have been like a large mounted ballista, you would feel that that heavy trigger pull for something that's different than just the bow and arrow.
Well, and to be fair, I just spent a ton of time with Forbidden West. Just got the platinum trophy, I know. And the triggers in that game actually are kind of mild when it comes to the bow and arrow, because they know that would probably get a little bit, tiring to always have to be like, I'm actually drawing a bow back. And then what about eye tracking?
Yeah, so the PSVR2 headset has eye tracking built in. It's one of the first, I think the first VR headset to have that built in. And mainly what it does is actually on the technical side of things to improve your visuals. So what it does is after you've calibrated the eyes, it can tell where on the screen, or rather like where within your FOV that you're looking, and then make sure that it's giving you the best image possible in that direct line of sight. And the spots that you aren't really looking at, it won't put as much rendering effort into making them quite as good. And so that way it can save processing power by only cranking up the visuals on exactly what you're looking at. So that's something that all of PSVR is doing, or at least it, again, will fall to developers, but that's a capability of the headset. As for Horizon itself, I did notice that on the menus, rather than like using the thumbstick to select a thing, or rather than pointing, it was whichever menu my eyes were pointed at was how it was selecting the menu things. And it's a fine implementation. It honestly sort of threw me off at first, because I was like, how do I move to something else? I was used to pointing with the controller. But once I figured it out, I was like, oh, it's the one that I'm looking at. Within the gameplay, though, I don't know if there will be further implementations. It's possible, but it'll all just be what the developers have cooked up.
All right, Bo. Well, that sounds all super exciting. I'm very excited for PSVR 2. We just still don't know when it's coming out, sometime next year. But I know Horizon is going to be one of the first games I want to play, because it's a launch title. But you have on the website, you have a full write-up of, you said Horizon, then you also have one for PSVR 2 itself, correct?
Yeah, it's a full write-up of PSVR 2, which has my Horizon impressions within it, and then there's a full video preview of the PSVR 2 itself.
Awesome. So make sure to check that out on the website. And of course, for everything else PSVR 2, you'll probably want to keep it on IGN. I think we're probably gonna keep covering it.
And you shall be a free man. It will take all your wits, your skills, and courage. You have walked in the shadows, Reyes. Now it is time to climb into the light.